To my sister Victoria, I apologise in advance that I'm filming in your bedroom. You have better evening lighting than I do. Also, to everyone else watching, I apologise that I look like a state because I am filming this video after a very long and tiring day at work. But you should never apologise about your appearance to anyone, so here I am with another video, and also with my very, very cute mug. So today I thought it was very topical to talk about whether going to university actually puts your life on hold for 3 years, because last week was A-level results day and a lot of people would have found out whether or not they got accepted into university and will be making the decisions whether they actually want to go or not. And also it's coming up to that time where people going into year 13 are going to start thinking about applications and whether they want to go or not. So obviously university is a massive commitment. It takes up 3 years of your life. You have to be very committed to the subject that you're doing because you're going to spend your whole time doing it. But is that all you're going to be doing at university, and will the rest of your life be put on hold for that 3 years? That very much depends on you as a person. I'm going to kind of talk about 3 different subjects within this video, and that is career, family life and friendships/relationships. We're going to start with family life. Obviously, if you're moving away from home, you're not going to be as in the family unit as you were definitely before that. So personally, I moved across the country, and saying that, England is a tiny, tiny country, so I moved a 5-hour car journey away, but a lot further away than home than I've ever been before. I've always lived at home, I've always been very, very close with my family, like my mum, my grandparents, my cousins, my sister, when we get on and don't bicker. I'm saying that specifically because she hasn't found out that I'm filming in her room yet. Anyway, I've always been very close with my family and very much home orientated, partly because I live in the middle of nowhere and there's nothing really else to do. So when I initially looked at universities, I was looking at places that were actually really close here so I could come back every weekend or so, but then fell in love with Bristol and realised that it might be best for me to move away. Personally, best decision I ever made, but that means that your family life kind of suffers a little bit. You're naturally not going to go home every weekend, and you're not going to spend your whole day with your family, and they won't know everything that you're doing all the time. My mum and I talk on the phone pretty much every single day and we know what we're doing, but our conversations still don't really get much deeper than what have you been up to and what are you doing tomorrow, just because it's hard to have that sort of thing over the phone, which has definitely meant that that's suffered. There is an annoying fly around. That fly needs to leave because it's really annoying me. But saying that, we've probably become a lot closer than we ever were before, which is saying a lot because my mum is like my best friend. Now, whenever I come home, we spend quality time together and it's really, really nice, and it's different for sure because it's weird coming from that distant relationship and then spending so much time with each other. It's also really hard whenever you come back, especially for a length of time like at Christmas or Easter, if you're home for like at least a week, settling back into a family lifestyle because you've got so used to you going away from home and living by yourself and getting used to your own routine and your own way of life, and then you're essentially going backwards in time and stepping back into your family home. That can be quite hard for both sides to get to grips with. I personally am quite self-sufficient when I'm at home. I've been cooking for myself personally since I was like 12, 13, so that's not really an issue per se. So I always like cooking for myself and my family if they're open to eating my food. But when it comes to daily life, I'm quite fortunate in that I'm not really restricted and I can do my own thing, whereas I know a lot of people become more restricted to the family home, the family timetable. So that's a thing that you're going to have to be aware of that will change inevitably. And it can kind of feel like when you jump back into this bubble that your life's kind of been separated into two. You've got this life at uni where you're becoming your own person, you're developing, and then this life where you come back home and nothing has changed. So your life has basically been put on hold. You're having a separate life and then you step back again. It's really, really strange to explain, but if you've been through it, you'll understand, I'm sure. In that sense, it kind of feels like your life has been put on hold when you're at university and you come back to this bubble where you grew up in, and then everything just continues as normal. The other thing that I can get my head around is that obviously the rest of your family is spending every single moment of the day together pretty much whilst you're away, so obviously they're gonna develop their relationships with each other and the jokes that they have and the banter that they have, and it's really hard for you to fit back into it. Personally, my mum and sister have quite a savage, sarcastic sense of humour, and me being away from it for so long and then jumping back into it was really, really hard to adjust to, and I'm quite sensitive, so hearing some of their comments was initially a bit like, why are you being so mean? But it took me a while and a couple of conversations to realise that they don't mean any of those mean things. Turning to the friendships and relationships topic, this is something that I've come to terms with more as like the year's gone on, and basically just reflecting on things. All this stuff takes time to really realise. This is why I'm filming the video now after a year as opposed to like halfway through the year. So this is kind of relating back to the video that I just filmed. When you're at school, you are sort of forced to be friends with people, and certain people that you think you're going to be like best friends with for life naturally isn't going to be the same if you come back from a term at university, because everyone's going through such a massive change. If you go to university and then one friend doesn't, and one friend does an apprenticeship, and one friend takes a gap year, and one friend goes to a different part of the country, and everyone's lives are going in completely different directions rather than just steered in the same one as they are in school, you're inevitably going to become slightly different people. And it's only when you start meeting up with people again and you've seen them a few times maybe that you realise your lives might have changed in the opposite ways, and that you're not really compatible in the long term as friends. Saying that, some of you might become closer than you ever did before because you might be changing in essentially the same way, and your mindset's going to be completely the same on so many different topics. So I'm not saying that all friendships crumble at all. It's just something to be aware of, that your best friend from since you were 4 might not be your best friend anymore. And that's just the harsh reality of how life works and how friendships change. It's progressively getting darker and darker as I'm filming this. I'm sure that the lighting is very different now than it was right at the start. So going back to the original question, whether university puts your life on hold in terms of friendships and relationships, it doesn't, because you've got to accept the fact that not only is your timeline moving on and you're changing, but so is everyone else's, and everyone changes at different rates, everyone experiences different things. So you're not all tied down to that one point when you left school. You're not just going to return to that and everything's going to be the same. Everything might be different and it might be fine, but be open for the fact that it might not be. And finally, the last section I want to talk about is your career. Obviously, when you go to university and you study a subject, it might be related to a specific career you want to go into, or it might not. You might just be doing it because you really enjoy it, but you've got a different idea of what you want to do afterwards. Just because you're working towards that subject doesn't mean that you can't work towards your career more and you can't do other things. So for example, my friend Ruby and I, we want to go into teaching, and we're making sure that we're doing other things to build up our teaching application process for what we do in the future. So I've been working at NCS, which obviously gives me an advantage in terms of working with young people and building up my skills as like a team leader. Ruby, for instance, is doing tutoring on a website where she can do online tutoring to people and do Skype sessions. So obviously she's building up how to teach people academics. What we've got to remember, and what is obviously always drummed into your head, is that just a degree isn't necessarily enough to get you places. Also, if you realise that you want to do something completely different, you don't have to wait until uni is finished to do that. My friend Aga, who I work with on NCS, I'm mentioning you again, Aga, what is this? You've made such an impact on my life. She's doing accounting and finance at the minute, and she's growing her social media to become an influencer, and she's set up her own charity, and she's being such an advocate for positive mental health, and she's building that not on the basis of her accounting and finance degree, but based on her passion, and that's what she actually wants to do. So just let your drive take you and go with that, essentially. Uni doesn't have to put your life on hold for you to accomplish what you ultimately want to do. So I'm going to wrap this up now because I'm literally looking at this and you can just see like a yellow blob that's my head because it's so dark now. So thank you so much for watching, guys, and I shall see you for another video very soon. And I hope results went really well. Good luck to anyone getting GCSE results as well. And goodbye.